Good afternoon. It's Thursday, August the 14th at about 1:30 in the afternoon. Today, I'm going to present a discourse on a subject that has been spoken of in one of my earlier videos, but has not been dealt with in any deeper way. And I'm going to call this discourse Heeding the Call of the Soul. Heeding, it's an old word, means paying attention to. Heed my warning is a way it was used in the days of my youth. My name is James Exum. My yogic name is Sakshi. Sakshi means the witness. And I'm here in Austin, Texas, in South Austin. It's a nice, very warm, it's a very warm afternoon in the 90s out there. And I thought, well, you know, this might be a good time to deliver this talk on video to whomever is out there in the world that might want to listen to it. My specialty is yoga philosophy, and as I've said numerous times, I've dealt with the study of and the writing of and the teaching on a very private level and minimal level of this subject since the mid-1970s, around 50 years, give or take. So here I am in Austin, and this should be the end of the end. I should be ending the introduction at this point. Heeding the Call of the Soul is the title of the video, and I'll go into it now. I'm going to read part of this and ad-lib part of this like I always do. This is fresh material. I wrote it back on the 13th of this month, which was yesterday, or maybe the day before, 12th and 13th of the month. And the opening discourse I called the applications of the inner voice. And you go, well, what is this inner voice? Well, it's that small, most of the time silent, but whispering voice that we hear in our mind. No one else hears it, but we hear it. We've heard it since our childhood. We may have ignored it most of our lives, but that doesn't mean it's not there. And it's an essential part of our makeup to have that voice. I consider it the voice of our conscience. I've said this before in various videos. I consider it the voice of our soul. My soul I named Sakshi, which is my literary name, my pen name, and Sakshi simply means the witness. Well, I consider that voice our soul, and I consider the witness, in Sanskrit, he, she, or it is known as Atman, A-T-M-A-N, and Atman is placed in the human body and stays within the human body during the human lifespan, be it 5 weeks, 5 years, or 105 years. It enters the body, I think, with the first breath, maybe at conception, but I'm going nowadays with the idea of the first breath. I wrote it conception earlier, but times change and minds change. My mind has changed on that subject. So that inner voice, or Atman, is central to most of the ancient scriptures and mystical teachings that have come down through the eons. It's in the Jewish faith, it's in the Christian faith, it's in the faiths of many religions of the world. And I consider it a guiding, not only a guiding, but an illuminating force within myself and every individual that's alive on this planet or ever has been alive on this planet. Now, to access that voice, I spoke about in depth, in detail, in one of my earlier videos. I believe I named that one Touching Infinity, or that name may have changed, but it's one of my early ones, in the first 5 or 6, I believe. And I spoke of how I got in touch with my inner voice. And you go, well, and I said it in that one also. I posed a question, well, how do you speak to your spirit? How do you speak to your soul? And then I countered that with an argumentative, well, it's impossible, just being speculative here, just creating a narrative for you, the listeners. And then I backed it up with my personal experiences. I speak to my soul. I spoke to it yesterday. I haven't spoken to it today. Well, maybe subconsciously I have, but not consciously. I haven't spoken to it. And it speaks to me every day. I know that, but sometimes in such a quiet whisper, it's almost like nudging someone, not pushing someone, but nudging someone forward to do something positive with their life and their activities that day to better themselves or the world. And so the concept that came to me a while ago, I have Parkinson's. So sometimes my voice is interrupted by these, they're not burps, they're just some sort of neurological happenings that go on with my voice box and my face and my throat and my breathing even sometimes. So I was nudged, not pushed, nudged into giving this talk this afternoon. The idea came to me. Well, where do your ideas come from? Are they just intuition? That's one theory. Are they deep, hidden thoughts that float to the surface and inspire you or depress you? That's another theory. I believe that when you're inclined to do something, there's an energy behind that motivation. And in my case, because I trust my inner voice, because I trust my Sakshi, because I trust my soul so much, and I believe most of my inspiration, which is an interesting word, inspiration. It's a very interesting word. But I believe most of it comes from beyond my earthly thought patterns. So there is access to that inner voice, and it comes through external means. It does not come through external means. What I meant to say, and that was not a Freudian slip, that was just, I'm wearing my glasses and I don't have a lot of light on the page I'm using for notes here. It does not come through external means, but by turning inwardly. You turn inward. And when you learn to turn inward, that's insightfulness, that's meditation, that's contemplation, and that's reflection. And being an old yogi, I am a yogi. A yogi simply means a man that's steeped and practiced in the works of yoga. And I am an old yogi. It's not a noble title. It's just one of the plainest titles you could have for a practitioner of yoga as a yogi. But because of my constant interaction with the morals and the ethics and the guidelines of yoga, I truly believe that by turning inward, I'm able to not only speak to my soul, but hear it in a clearer voice. It's not like you sit over there or sit in one of my chairs up here and we have a conversation. That's not at all. Or as we say in the Old South, not at all how it works. The Old South. We have a lot of wonderful euphemisms like that in the Old South. I was born in Southwest Georgia, grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, and that's the accent you're hearing. And if you have any difficulty with it, then please turn on that device for the videos that illuminates my word along the screen as I'm speaking. That closed caption, it's called. I've learned that terminology. So the inner voice comes not through external means, but by turning inward. Now, who turns inward? If it's the soul, who is the one turning inward? Well, it's your brain, it's your mind, it's your intellect, which are all underneath, not the direction of the soul. The soul does not interfere, it merely suggests. So it's not the soul that's turning inward on itself, it's the active mind and the intellect, mostly the intellect. The intellect is in charge of the mind. The mind is the monitor of the brain. The brain is the monitor of the sensories, the sensory outlets that look outward or touch outward or taste things from the outward world, the external. Now we're going internal. We're trying to get in touch and stay in touch with the inner voice. Well, is the inner voice an active thing? Here's another question. Well, I would say it's not passive because it comes to me when I need it. A perfect example is when you're young and you're first starting to drive a car, and I remember my drive home with my mother from taking my driver's test. I remember on the way home that I looked in my rearview mirror and there was a policeman in the lane next to me, in the middle lane, so to speak. And I got very nervous, and I didn't say anything to Mom, and but I was talking to myself, and I was saying, oh, there's a policeman there. Don't, please don't let anything go wrong on my first day of driving after passing my test. And so I had my learner's permit, of course, and so he passed on and went on. Well, so did that fleeting moment of near panic. I wouldn't say a panic, but it was near panic. Well, where were those thoughts coming from? I wasn't guilty of anything. Well, I think it was the guiding voice. I think it was my soul waking me up so I wouldn't be so nonchalant in driving home that day. I would be paying attention to that rear view every few seconds. We were taught in those days that you look in your rear view or that side view mirror about every 30 seconds. That way you're totally aware of your surroundings, not just looking out, but looking over your shoulder, so to speak, in the rear view, in the middle of the car windshield, and looking to your left in that rear view mirror. So you're looking at the past, what you have passed, but also what is approaching you from the past. I like this analogy. It's a good one, don't you think? And so it is with the soul. The soul helps us look back into our memory, and it brings to mind, no pun intended, it brings to mind something that's happened in the past that's very similar to something that's happening at this moment in time, so we can do a comparative analysis of that, and we can learn from our past experience our choices of what to do with the present circumstances that might be similar. So there's another way the soul communicates with you. So by turning inward, not only are you dealing with the soul, but you're dealing with a form of meditation, because you're cultivating quietness or quietude. You're also cultivating discernment on the choices you make, good choices, bad choices, and you're building your internal faith. I don't like to use the word faith because yoga, in my opinion, as an old scholar, is not a religion. It's a science. The science of living is what I call yoga in my philosophy, in my writings. So the word faith is not perfectly interchangeable with belief. So I will change that wordage in my notations here when I'm done, and I'll strike through that and write in the word belief. So by turning inward, we are cultivating quietude, discernment, and belief in the power of our ability to communicate and learn from the soul's wisdom as it is the witness to our activities while we are here on this planet. As I said, the inner voice is active, not passive, and it clarifies the life purpose. It helps to clarify our life's purpose. In Sanskrit, our life's purpose is called Dharma, D-H-A-R, M-A, which phonetically and even in spelling pretty much rhymes with karma, which is action, positive, negative, or neutral. Well, if your karma, your actions on the road of your life, the path you have chosen, the proper path you have chosen, the positive path you have chosen in life, dharma, are together like cousins walking hand in hand or supporting each other in good and bad times, then you are properly making your way towards the goal of moksha, which is liberation, during your lifetime, so that once your body decomposes back into the earth, the spirit is released, like throwing off an old suit of clothes. I always use that one as the way to describe it. It's very easy, and you can get a mental picture of that. And so the soul is released back into the cosmos. But it's released with the record of your good and bad karma and juxtaposing of the cosmic judgment. Now that's an old concept that goes even back to the Egyptians. The Egyptians, when you would face Anubis, who was the god of death, he's the jackal-headed god you see in a lot of their hieroglyphics. Supposedly, you would go into this room of judgment, and there would be a scale there, and your heart would be on one of the plates of the scale, one of the pans of the scale, and a feather would be on the other pan. Well, the feather represented truth. Your heart represented your accumulated karma, positive or negative, and if the feather balanced with your heart or outweighed your heart, then you were given a very good afterlife. And so it is with your soul. I believe that there is a judgment day. I'm not going to set up a courtroom with some old man with a long beard and robes and angels floating around and worshipers and inhabitants of paradise singing Hosea, Hosea, Hosea to the highest, ad infinitum and ad nauseum. I'm not going to create something like that. I'm just simply going to say there's always balance within the universe. One of my other comments I've used and allegories I've used is the wheel of karma is gigantic. Just picture it now. It's gigantic and it's perfectly balanced. And it rolls continually forward through the cosmos. And it does not waver in that motion as it rolls. One iota, it just simply rolls perfectly through time and space. So now that we've talked about the inner voice is active, not passive, it helps to clarify your life, and it helps your dharma, it helps you on your path of dharma to contribute unique and positive things to the world. That's covered a lot of territory right there. I'm going to try to keep this, we're at about 19 minutes. I'm going to try to keep this under 30 minutes. I'm trying to create 30-minute videos because that's within the attention span of most human beings today, especially those inclined to intellectual pursuits. And my speeches, my talks, my discourses are on an intellectual plane because we're talking about yoga philosophy. We're not talking about the asanas where you're on the mats and the teacher's at front in the tights and teaching the poses. Nothing against that. I do not judge any of that. I did that when I was younger. I even taught it when I was younger. But after a certain age, I started leaning more towards the scholarly side of yoga, the historical side of yoga, the great texts of yoga, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedic texts, and of course the Upanishads, and then the great writings of the rishis, the sages from those ancient days, even up to today. Maybe 1,000 years from now, I might be considered a rishi, a writer, a scholar of yoga philosophy. Who knows? I'm not going to judge myself, and I really am not looking for any other titles, and I'm not looking for anything out of what I'm teaching the world through these videos, because you're not supposed to look for reward in work. Your work. You're just supposed to do it for the sake of work, and if anything, you do it as a oblation, as a gift to your creator, who is Brahman. Brahman is the creator, and I believe every word that's coming out of my lips today. This is all not just the subject I've studied for around 50 years. This is my personal belief. Now, you hear me saying the word belief again, and not faith. This is my true belief. So once you learn to listen to this guidance from the soul, from the little voice, the quiet voice, once you learn to listen to that, once you learn to heed the call of the soul, then you recognize at a certain point that it takes a certain amount of courage to do this, and you have to long for it, you have to want it, and you have to be honest in your self-reflections. During your meditation, you're thinking about your life and how you've done things and how you need to change or do things in a better way. We all need to do that. And then you also learn that the soul is speaking to the soul and heeding the voice of the soul is not just something you learn in books. No. Or solely by the intellect or study. It is a very personal experience that you will want to achieve someday, and that day will come. It came to me. And if it can come to me, this old man that's imperfect, it can come to anyone that is aspiring to get in touch with their selves. The self-realization, the individuation, is the step you are moving toward. So you do not want to ignore the inner voice, because that will lead to alienation. As a child, you may have heard the inner voice, especially when no one's around. They told you, don't eat those cookies before supper, don't spoil your lunch. I don't know if that happened in your home, but it did in mine, and it did in a lot of people's back in the 50s. I'm a child of the 50s, born in 1950. Grew up sitting on the living room floor watching the first television sets in our neighborhood, and the early cartoons. They were all black and white. And the color didn't come out, I think, to right around 58 to 62. I remember when they came out. They were just horrible, horrible color. You got the reds, the blues, and the yellows, and that's about what you got. So you need to listen to this guidance through your courage and your longing for it, and your self-reflection will help you. These are the ways to get there. And it's not just intellectual activity that gets you there. It's personal. It's a very personal belief that will help you reach that level. But if you ignore that inner voice, the cookie, the child, don't eat before supper or lunch, you'll ruin your next meal. If you ignore it, then you will alienate it. I'm not saying it's like a favorite relative that always, when they come to visit, always praises you and gives you a little gift, a few dollars or whatever, and remembers your birthday and the anniversaries of your life and all that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the soul, I'm not saying it can be hurt by your neglect of it, but it is your conscience, and it is a living entity. So if it's living, can it have its feelings hurt? That's a much deeper discussion that I'll try to get to in a much later video. I've got 50 videos by my 75th birthday, September 30th, I'm trying to put on record. So I'll put that in my notebook for future videos in the contents feel. Well, they say plants can feel. The Russians did experiments that showed that plants, when they're cut or bent or abused in some way, or if they listen to classical music, it kind of perks them up. So if a plant can feel, why can't the soul feel hurt and neglect and being ignored? It's a subject for another day, as I said. So do not ignore your inner voice. It's there to help you emotionally and help heal your emotional suffering. It has an incredible amount of answers for you if you'll just approach it with the right questions and question, and in your questioning, you use the questions in an effective and proper manner. You just can't go and say, next week will I get that motorcycle that I've been wanting, or can I go down and play the clubs on 6th Street tonight and become a famous singer. Austin's the musical capital of the world. I'm in Austin, have been here for over 50 years. No, that's not how. It's not a genie in a bottle. It's an eternal being, just like God is eternal. Brahman was never born, he shall never die. The soul was never born, it shall never die. Only the bodies it occupies come and go. So if you follow that inner voice, it will foster authenticity in you and in your wordage and in your ways. You'll become more of an authentic person. It will lead you towards meaningful action. And then, of course, the most marvelous bonus of all you get out of this, with communicating and heating the soul, you create what I term a soulful connection. I'm actually friends with my soul. It's friends with me. I have a soulful connection. Of course, I operate on a much higher level of yoga principles than most people do because of my intense study and dedication to it all these years. So follow that inner voice, and it will foster all those things and more that I've just spoken of. This wisdom that I've spoken of is in the Upanishads. It is in the Bhagavad Gita and the teachings of rabbis and swamis and gurus and any priest and preachers. It's in their wisdom. It's been there since the beginning, and it'll be there long after you and I are gone. Well, I think I've done rather well in my 28 minutes so far, so now I'm going to wind it down and kind of put it all together for you. So remember, the inner voice is the Atman. The Atman is the soul in the body. Brahman is the one that put that spark of his divinity in you while you live on this earth, from breath to breath, first breath to last breath. The life enters you in the first breath, so to speak. I'm not going to get into that argument about fetal life and fetal humanness. I'm just going to say the first breath you take outside the body. When you expire that last breath, you let that last breath go. That's generally when death comes. You have access to the voice. The inner voice is active. It's listening to you, and you should listen to its guidance. You shouldn't ignore it. You should follow the inner voice and benefit from all the positive things it can supply you with and help you out with wisdom beyond the earthly range of wisdom, because it's echoed down through the corridors of time, through all the great writings, as I said. And here we are. So again, I am James Exum. I am Sakshi. It is August the 14th, 2025. It's about almost going on 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I thank you for coming. I hope you come back sometime and visit with me again. If you enjoyed it, that's wonderful. If you didn't, that's okay too. You don't have to come back. But I will leave you with these final words. Be good to yourself. Be good to others. And pass those words along to friends, family, and even strangers. And who knows, someday, collectively, we all may wake up in a fresh world and say, isn't it wonderful? All of that goodness and belief in each other that we've been spreading in a positive way for the last 10 or 12 or 15 years has finally brought us to this new world in which we should have belonged all along. And goodbye to you, and thank you so much.